It's coming soon. The age of the cyborg. Living beings that combine biology and technology. Already we can make animals do what we want them to. And humans can control computers by thought alone. The potential may be limitless. Cyborgs could download and process huge amounts of information effortlessly. Is the merging of man and machine, the cyborg, the future of humanity? Technology used to be an aid to do things better or to make up for our own shortcomings. We used it. By the end of the 20th century, it was all around us and sometimes inside us. Once, technology and human evolution went hand in hand. Now, it seems to be overtaking us. Will man and machine merge? Professor Kevin Warwick is trying this out on himself. He's had a tiny radio transmitter implanted into his body. He wants to become the world's first cyborg. For 90 days, the transmitter was linked to his university's computer network.
Hello, Professor Warwick.
Hello.
The computer could track him anywhere in Reading University's cybernetics lab. Warwick's day job is to develop robots, soulless creatures that only do as much as their information input allows. But Kevin Warwick has now gone one further. He has a microchip implanted in his arm which is directly connected to his nervous system. 100 electrodes on the chip are plugged into the main nerve on his wrist. This is the nerve that carries electrical impulses from his brain to his fingers. The implant picks up and measures these impulses. The signals that move his hand can be transmitted to control many other devices. For instance, he can make his wheelchair move.
And that's backwards. And that's left. And right.
For Professor Warwick, the merging of man and machine is not only possible and desirable, but inevitable. We can't make robots human, but we can make them part of us. For him, it's the only way to advance artificial intelligence and to keep it under our control. But soon we'll be following the computers.
The possibility is there of not necessarily us suffering from an intelligent machine-dominated world, but for us to upgrade, to have implants to link our brains to the intellectual capabilities of the machine, to become part machine ourselves, to become cyborgs, part human, part machine. So rather than to be beaten by intelligent machines, we become one with them. If you can't beat them, join them.
But Kevin Warwick's vision requires a seamless link between the nervous system and electronic devices. That link is known as a neurochip. Neuroscientist Peter Fromhertz of the Max Planck Institute is one of the leading researchers in the field. He's working hard to find out what it takes to link nerve cells to computer circuits. Or if it's even possible. Because there's a huge hurdle to overcome.
Computer bestehen aus vielen Schaltern.
Computers are made of lots of switches and transistors. They calculate. They add zeros and ones and ones and ones, but it's a sequential set of calculations. We don't know how the brain functions, but it certainly doesn't calculate. That's not possible because the component parts of the brain, the ion canals, the ions in the cells, are at least 1 million times slower than the components of a computer, and you couldn't build a computer with such slow components. It wouldn't work. So the brain must function in a different way. It is some kind of parallel dynamic that we don't yet understand.
How realistic is the vision of a cyborg with a neurochip implanted in his brain? It's the latest stage in a long scientific saga. It all started with Luigi Volta in 1787. With the very first batteries, he delivered an electric shock to frogs' legs. It made their muscles contract. We still use this same phenomenon to contract muscles and save lives. And now we know too that the language of our brains is based on bioelectric impulses. Millions of nerve cells communicate in fractions of a second, and we each have 100 billion active nerve cells in our brains. Stretch them out, and they'd reach from the Earth to the Moon, a distance of 300,000 kilometers. No wonder there are still a few mysteries to be solved. And the brain on its own is powerless. In order to be aware of its surroundings, it needs highly specialized inputs of electrical information. It needs to be linked to our senses to supply that information. Our hearing is the receptor we know best. It's our ears, even more than our eyes, that help us locate ourselves in our environment. But what happens if we lose that source of information? Could a neurochip replace our inner ear, or even improve on its performance? Scientists are already halfway there. This is an inner ear implant. Here at the Hanover Medical School, the experts restore the hearing of 250 people every year. Our sense of hearing is a very sophisticated system. Our ears consist of 3 parts: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer ear receives the sound waves and channels them to the eardrum in the middle ear. The waves make the eardrum vibrate, and the hairs in the spiral of the inner ear turn those vibrations into electrical currents. Nerves carry the impulses to the brain, where hearing happens. Deafness has many causes, including this one. After prolonged exposure to too much loud music, the system can overload and produce a penetrating whistling sound in the ear. Every year, millions of people across the world suffer 100% deafness, not just caused by noise. They may have been born deaf, or their deafness could be the result of illness or the side effects of medicines. The first stage of every treatment is to find out what the patient can hear and to test their balance. The hairs of the inner ear react to the slightest divergence from the vertical. The implant operation is achieving remarkable results. 80% of children with an implant go on to attend normal schools. Children that are born deaf receive 2 implants, because the parts of the brain that process hearing need intensive and early stimulation to learn to understand the sounds. The only sound messages their brains have ever received come from the implants. Adults aren't quite so lucky. If they were born deaf, it may be too late to educate their brains. And if they lost their hearing, the new sounds are very different from what they were used to. The positioning of the implant is critical. It's a delicate and invasive operation. But it's essential if the brain is to learn to hear. Now, this is well-established technology. High-tech spare parts are a familiar part of modern medicine. This new hearing system comes in 2 parts: the internal cochlear implant and an external speech processor. A tiny microphone picks up the sounds for the speech processor. This transforms them into signals and sends them to the transmitter. The transmitter sends the signals to the individual receivers on the implant itself. The electrodes on the implant then stimulate nerve fibers in the spiral of the inner ear, and hearing takes place. Four weeks after the operation, a technician tunes in the device.
Kommt der da hinten drauf? Ich mache eine Überprüfung.
I'm going to test to see if it's all working.
First, the doctors check that the 22 electrodes are working properly.
Jetzt hören Sie
Now you can hear very soft sounds.
leise. Ganz leise.
Or maybe you can't hear them at all, and I'll make them a little louder.
Wenn Sie etwas
If you
hören,
hear something, let me know.
Then the patient must train their brain how to hear with the implant.
Ist leise.
leise.
Quiet?
Very quiet.
Jetzt ist
Now
er
it's pleasant.
Angenehm. Und
Pleasant.
können Sie schon
And can you
etwas
understand anything yet?
Ein
A
bisschen.
little, yeah.
That's
Das ist
great.
toll.
Ja, es beinhaltet die ganze.
They've been developing this system for more than 30 years.
Ja, probieren Sie den mal aus.
Nehme ich das alte ab.
The quality has steadily improved. But this is still just an implant. The 22 electrodes are placed next to the cells of the inner ear, but there's no permanent contact between them. The researchers in Hanover are aiming for the next step, A real neurochip, the merging of man and machine. They lay thin layers of human nerve cells in a nutrient solution. The idea is they'll grow around the electrodes and form permanent connections. If they succeed in joining them up, they will have a genuine neurochip. Already, the results are astonishing.
Did you hear something? Something loud? And what was it? That's right, it was the drum. Very good.
But super hearing is still a long way away. And that's even truer of experiments with artificial vision. Our eyes supply us with enormous amounts of detailed information. It's a far steeper slope for technology to climb. Sherry Brown is blind. When she was 16, her optic nerve was destroyed in a car crash.
2 weeks ago she had her accident. But we've been through so much.
She'd almost given up hope of ever seeing again when she heard of a process known as the artificial vision system. She's one of only 16 people in the world who've received this treatment.
You get it the right place, it clicks right in. So you got little grooves in here and you got to make sure they go in the right spot. Otherwise you can't fasten it down.
It's now several months since Sherry had 2 electrodes implanted on the surface of her brain. The artificial vision system is beginning to help her see again. Dr. Galanis was Sherry's specialist. When he realized he couldn't help her, he found out about this operation. Now she's come back to show him the results.
Her coordinator, you're the Cardinal twins first.
Yeah, I think red is all we had, but we've got other.
Unlike the cochlear implant, in this case, the surface of the brain is directly stimulated.
And you've been using it like an hour a day.
An hour a day, yeah. She knows she's got
The camera in her spectacles sends digital signals to the computer around her waist.
What we have to do is
A cable then carries the signals to the implant in the sight centers of Sherry's brain, where she sees.
not yet. There, it just popped on.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Just walk behind.
That was good, yeah. Wow.
Oh, whoa.
You have some bright lights, Doctor. Check you out.
I got a white coat on. So that's probably
That's
what's
so cool.
That's probably what's
Oh my
that's
goodness,
throwing it. Of course I got a white shirt.
Sherry practices every day to help her brain get used to the system.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So what?
Oh, is that you, Chris?
Because this is a very different way of seeing.
That one with a piece of Dr. Galanis' equipment there.
Yeah.
Right there?
Yeah, you gotta roll back a little bit more. There.
Best way I can think of to describe it is if someone's taking a picture of you that has a camera flash on it, and you know how sometimes a flash will get you in the eye, and then you just kind of see a resonance of it for a little bit, like a little white dot. That's how I see, but I see 2 white dots, one on top of the other.
The electrodes are connected to the sight centers in both lobes of the brain. The electric signals stimulate the brain to see points of light that settle into shapes. The only American surgeon who has implanted the artificial vision system is Dr. Kenneth Smith.
Well, it's better to see you.
Come on down to my office.
The operation isn't allowed in the US, so Dr. Smith has to go to Portugal to carry it out.
So that, you know,
He regularly checks the electrodes in Sherry's head because the direct connection to the brain means there's a constant risk of infection.
that's why I have this all.
Hi, Sherry.
Roger.
How you doing, good looking?
Roger Evans comes by to check Sherry's progress.
Who turned you on this morning?
I had to turn myself on.
The operation cost $100,000. The local Lions Club paid for it.
Because sometimes my dots are not just white, but they'll be a little red inside. Cool.
Okay, can you
Whoa.
focus? That was Dr. Smith. You can focus on the table.
Follow-up checks are a vital part of the treatment and of the research.
And the objects are...
She found the book,
I
the
got
biggest
it.
one.
I got it.
What did you think that was?
Sherry can
I wasn't
already
sure. I
see
thought maybe it was gonna
outlines
be,
against a contrasting background.
A telephone, maybe. The way the dots
maybe.
acted.
Okay.
Because sometimes a telephone will really
Well, look
reflect.
around. There is something there that looks a little like a telephone.
The grain could
Now I'm
be-
seeing some flashes right
It's
here.
the difference in the grain, yeah.
Oh.
This is how it might look one day when the system works perfectly.
But there's two small objects still on the table.
There's always a few seconds delay before an image forms itself in the brain.
I'm seeing something. Stapler!
Once again, a computer can't seem to equal the speed of the brain. Normal human sight works completely differently. The retina transforms light waves into bioelectric impulses, which the optic nerve carries to the sight centers at the back of the brain. It's the brain that sees and then recognizes what we see. The first job is to make a shape. Separate outlines are assembled until a tower is recognized. But this could be any tower anywhere. Next, the brain processes information about color. Step by step, the brain combines different kinds of information into one image, one impression. The brain combines memories and knowledge with fresh input. Once the Eiffel Tower is recognized, the person feels a surge of recognition, as further associations with the image are instantly added. Only then is the picture complete. By these standards, Sherry's restored vision is crude. But every success counts.
Seeing some flashes here.
Her brain takes a few seconds to form shapes from the camera's data. In this case, a chair.
Is that one edge of it there? Mm-hmm. Really? Mm-hmm. And there's the edge of it again, right?
Mm-hmm. Can you walk to it?
Let me see. You're kidding me.
Yeah. You got it.
I did it. After the surgery, I had too much brain leakage, and they had to do another surgery to patch that up. Then I had an infection. So I've kind of been put through the ringer. But when I finally got turned on and I could see lights, oh, it was all worth it. Definitely all worth it.
Sherry wants to improve her sight still further. But expensive software is needed to activate a higher number of electrodes in her brain. She may have to wait a while.
You got it all the way into the fountain again.